Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Quite obviously, I am not working on a chainsaw. I would actually prefer to be doing that, but I'm under my '04 GMC 3/4 ton, and thankfully, because it's a GM truck, I don't spend a lot of time under here. When I have to, it's usually something that probably shouldn't have failed yet, but did. First time around was the cab mounts. These things are notorious for that, but those guys aren't going to fail again because those are polyurethane mounts. And yes, they increase the stiffness of the ride a little bit, but guess what? They're never going to run out. But today's mission is the infamous, I've come to find, transfer case leak. These are a New Venture transfer case, and evidently New Venture designed a oil pump that's free floating. It's going to be on the output shaft right back in here, and because it's free floating, it moves in there. Well, that's an aluminum pump, and apparently the pump body, we'll look at it later, but it's only about as thick as that right there. So that aluminum back and forth against this magnesium will wear a hole inside of the case eventually. Mine happened to be right where you see that damn JB weld. I started getting about silver dollar size puddles under my truck when I park at work. It only leaks when you're driving, when it's actually pumping, but most people don't notice it until their case runs dry and explodes. Thankfully that did not happen. So I went to Merchant Automotive and I bought their replacement kit that comes with an upgraded pump with much better ears on it. We'll look at that later. A new rear housing, because that's what has to be done at this point. I mean, you probably could epoxy patch it and do an upgrade on the pump, but I'm not going to dick around with that. That's too much work to have possibly fail. So anyway, I'm going to get started. I'm going to get this thing drained and get the wiring, the actuator disconnected, speed sensors back there. Got to get the skid plate out of the way, and then get the transmission supported. And I'm going to just lower this down on the jack. Obviously the drive shaft, that big bastard's going to have to come out, and I can only imagine what that thing's going to weigh. But anyway, we'll come back here in a little bit and I'll show you a few more details of this job. Okay, so here's the first run to the damn parts store. The transmission cross member has got to come off, and the nuts that are up above are not weld nuts. They're just loose, and naturally they're an 18 millimeter, and my box open end wrench set for metric ends at 17 millimeter. I guess someday I'll have to bulk up my metric tools with all that stuff, but whatever. This parts store is only a short ways away here, so no big deal. We're taking a ride in the old Chevy. This is the 1965 Chevy pickup that I grew up with. My dad bought this from the second owner, or the first owner, excuse me. He was the second owner. He bought it in 1972. And yeah, it's a pretty cool old truck. I've done a lot of work to it. Most of it was in my 20s. The last 10 years or so, I haven't done squat with it, and I feel pretty guilty about that because it needs a paint job in the worst way. But I did put a nice fresh 350 in it with a 700 R4. That transmission's built just enough to handle this. I can tow a trailer, no problem. So anyway, I'll get some wrenches here, bulk up the stock, and we'll come back when I get a little more progress. Okay, so the 18 millimeter did the trick, but we'll get to that in a minute. Drive shaft is out. The cradle bolts back there are a 10 millimeter. Pretty easy to get loose. Didn't have any trouble at all. I just slipped this out. You will have fluid here. See, it's dripped a few times, still is. Be prepared to catch the initial, I don't know, 2 or 3 tablespoons, I'd say. Make sure your drip pan's there. You're going to want to mark your U-joint as it comes out of the the yoke back there so you get it back in the same spot. Supposedly these things are a balanced assembly. If that's true, you definitely don't want to mess that up. Alright, then up here I've got the transmission cross member out. That would be that nice little assembly right there that I'm so close to. I know it's going to look stupid, but it bolts to the bottom of the frame. Shoot. Didn't mean to do that, sorry folks. There we go. Bolts to the bottom of the frame on both sides. I've put the nuts back on. Those are I want to say those are a 17. But whatever the case, yeah, there it is. I can't read it for beans. 15. You've got to go up through the transmission cross member with an extension on it in order to catch these things, and then they come right loose. Now I'm going to have to unbolt that whole mount from the transmission so that I can get to the bolts that hold the transfer case on. You want to make sure you're supported. I'm using my floor jack right now. I'm hoping to make my life easier that I'm going to be able to get a jack stand under there at some point, maybe up here once I get that bolt out, so that I can have the jack help me lower this. But since I drained the fluid in the transfer case, I'm guessing this is only 50 pounds or so, but what's left are these damn wires up here. Those should unplug easily, and they are not. So what I'm hoping is I've got enough slack in the harness to drop it down and loosen them where I can see what the heck I'm doing. So anyway, we'll come back with any luck with this thing on the ground. Okay, I'm going to guess, and actually I'm going to say it took all of about 2.5 hours to get this thing out. Part of the trouble, let me get my bearings right here. This bolt right here, the bolt on that goes to the transmission, god dang catalytic converter is right in the way. And I know there's going to be a lot of you guys saying, why do you still have a cat? I'm asking that question myself right now. I could only get maybe a 1/16 of a turn at a time. Thankfully I was able to get some penetrating oil up there and get it to loosen up. So anyway, this is the 263 HD new process transfer case. This is the push button one, and there's a better view of my patch, and there's also an indication that there's more holes than I thought. That's interesting. I'm trying to find something here on the bench that I can poke at that with. Right there. Oh, no, that was grease. Okay. But that's exactly what the other hole looked like under here. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other nubs were close to wearing through. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to get this apart. Merchant Automotive is where I bought my kit from. So it comes, this is an expensive kit. I mean, there's some sticker shock here. This is $600 worth. Comes with the new housing. I was hoping it would be an upgraded to aluminum, but it's still magnesium. But the meat and potatoes are in this bag right here. There is a new output shaft seal. I opted to add the driver because I have nothing to drive one of those seals properly. I opted for the full upgrade. I just bought a complete oil pump. Nice wide flanges on it. New gasket for the back of the transmission to the transfer case, and that's important. That holds oil in there, and mine was leaking a little bit, so I opted to add, excuse me, it comes with the snap ring pliers. I don't think that was an option. That just came with them. I've heard mixed reviews. We'll see if they work. Comes with the proper RTV for sealing the case halves up. So I'll put a link down below to Merchant Automotive's video on the installation of this. It's far better than anything I could do. So I'm just going to get started taking this thing apart. They go through all the steps you need to do. The one thing I'm going to note, if I can rotate this without knocking it over, is there's a bunch of bracketry. There's 1, 2, 3. That may be it, but I could sit here and take a bunch of digital pictures. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to get the new case out, and I'm going to write a 1 on that and a 1 on the case, and I can match them up that way. So that when I get under the truck and bolt it back up and go to put all the wiring in place, I'm not sitting there going, what? Because that's the last thing I want to do. So, anyway, we'll come back in a little bit. When I get this opened up and expose the damage that's done in here, we'll come back and I'll show you guys exactly what the heck it is that's going on in there. Well, that was just exactly as simple as Merchant's website said it would be. Super simple. These are the snap ring pliers that come with it. They're made in the US, and I don't know if the earlier kits had something different. Those are great. They spread that snap ring right there is the one that retains that bearing in place. So it spreads it just fine to let that drop. It's going to be the reverse when I put it back in. So let's get to the meat and potatoes. I got it apart. The first thing I heard was ting ting, snap, drop, excuse me. I heard a very thin piece of metal drop somewhere. There's one piece of it. That's the magnetic pickup. Now that is not all that should be there. I had to do a little peering around, but I finally found where the other piece dropped. You guys probably can't see it with what I'm doing here, but it's way just down there. You might be able to focus, and it's there. That pulled in. I'll see if I can grab that with needle nose pliers and not shake the camera too much. Okay, there's part 2. So that was New Venture's dumbass idea of, God, there's more of it. There's another piece in here somewhere. Well, I'll do some more hunting. I'll finish this up. So that was their idea of a anti-wear clip. This is the oil pump. That's free floating on the shaft. So this indexes into the housing. Right, in those, I thought it was 5, I'm wrong, it's only 4 spots. And you see how wide those bosses are, and yet they made that damn pump that stinking thin. Now, note the difference in shine and the kind of blunted edge right there. Hopefully I can get this stuff to come into focus. There's groove number 1. Way down in that corner right there. And then the one that was actually leaking, I think, nope, that one was the one that was leaking. So I can't get you guys in there at a good angle to see it. But that had actually rattled back and forth once that clip broke and worn a hole in the case. Now if it hadn't been there, it was going to be right there. So anyway, that's why this damn thing was leaking. And that's unfortunate. That's just a shitty design that some engineer somewhere decided to take. Let me see if I can dig without damaging that gasket and dig this new pump out. Now I opted for the full pump kit. It's Merchant Automotive's logo there. Pretty nice little piece. If you just buy the upgrade, you're going to get this outer ring with the reinforced or the larger bosses, and you'll have to take apart your pump and bolt their ring to your pump. It's only 6 torque screws, it's no big deal, but this I think was also only a $40 upgrade to get me a complete brand new pump assembly. So that's what I opted for. So anyway, I'm going to dig around in here and see if I can find that last piece of clip and start cleaning up this old silicone. And my goal is to get this thing reassembled and let that silicone set up overnight. I'll dump it back in the truck tomorrow, and hopefully by tomorrow afternoon she'll be back on the road. Okay, there it is, reassembled. I'm very, very happy with that Merchant Automotive kit. Came with literally everything that you need to do this change out. It came with a new O-ring for the pump pickup tube. It came with, see, there's the O-ring for the speed sensor. That seal fits beautifully. The driver worked wonderfully. Comes pre-installed with the bushing in here, which is very important. The bearing for the front drive is pre-installed, so that makes it easy. It comes with their magnetic drain plug and then a new fill plug to go with this new housing. So again, it's expensive, but I think it might be worth it. So I'm going to leave it sitting upright overnight, and into part of tomorrow I want to give that silicone at least 12 hours to cure before I even tip it to the side. Most of the oil is out of it. There's barely anything left. However, I don't want to risk a leak, because as much fun as this has been, I'd rather not do it again ever. So check in sometime tomorrow and start putting this thing back into the truck. But with this redesigned oil pump, I really don't think I'm going to have to do this ever again.